how Ted Danson's A Man on the Inside was adapted from The Mole Agent, and why the country of Chile is rooting for it. The entire country of Chile has a vested interest in the success of Ted Danson's new Netflix comedy, A Man on the Inside. In the series, Danson plays Charles, a retired widower who answers a help-wanted ad, and is then hired by a PI to embed in a retirement community and spy on its residents and staff. From Universal Television, A Man on the Inside is based on the Oscar-nominated 2020 Chilean documentary, The Mole Agent, which detailed the real-life version of the story. Danson's character is based on the film's central star, Sergio Chamy, who has since become a household name in his home nation. He's a rock star, says The Mole Agent director Maite Alberdi, who is now also an executive producer on A Man on the Inside through Micromundo Productions. He's in all the commercials on TV. He shot a film with Amazon. And now everybody is going crazy because Ted Danson is playing our star, adds The Mole Agent producer Marcela Santibañez, who also is an EP on the new show. I showed Sergio a picture of Ted Danson and I said, "This is the guy playing you?" He's like, "Oh, that's a very good copy." It was A Man on the Inside EP Michael Schur's producing partner Morgan Sackett who first watched The Mole Agent and suggested to Schur that it would make a perfect adaptation into a scripted series, with Danson, there The Good Place star as the lead. The Good Place, which ended in 2020, tackled meaningful subjects like ethics, empathy and humanity, and The Mole Agent, which looks at human connections, particularly when it comes to aging, felt like the proper follow-up. Danson was immediately in. In a little way, it's almost a continuation, at least thematically or emotionally, of The Good Place, he agrees. Because it is about how to live a purposeful life right until the very end of life. Down in Chile, Alberdi and Santibañez had similarly believed The Mole Agent might lend itself to a scripted adaptation. But as documentarians, they didn't think it would be right for them to do it themselves. It was going to be weird to make a version of our own film, Alberdi says. That's when they heard from Schur and Sackett, and things moved quickly from there. From the first meeting, they were very understanding of the sense of the film in a very profound way, Alberdi says. Their goal was to be respectful, and to work in the same tone, with the same topics that we have. Santibañez in particular, being a big fan of The Good Place, knew that it was the right fit. The Good Place had that amazing combination of being heartwarming, but also being a lot of fun and with humor, she says. When we were approached by them, I thought this is perfect. And then when they said that Ted Danson was going to be Sergio, it was like, wow, that's a dream come true. Like, who could be better than Ted Danson? The feeling was mutual. I fell in love with it, and the lead of the documentary, Sergio, Danson says, has such a sweet innocence about him. And he's funny. Just the setup of an 80-year-old person trying to be a spy is inherently funny. And then instead of just following the evidence or the clues of why he was there, he starts to make everybody feel better about who they are. And in doing so, I think his life expands. It was a meaningful conversation about things that I'm at the right age to be talking about. The serendipity of The Mole Agent was that Alberdi and Santibañez originally set out to do a doc about a private investigator. But when that PI started working on the case of finding an older spy and embedding him in a retirement home, they switched gears and focused on the story of Sergio. It became a much more profound documentary, particularly about loneliness among older people. That doesn't sound like an obvious subject for a comedy, but Schur says he was drawn into that theme as well. The most dangerous thing about aging sometimes is not an accident or a disease, but loneliness, he says. I read a bunch of articles about how loneliness is worse than smoking, in terms of what it does to your health at any age. And I think COVID really accelerated a loneliness epidemic in this country, especially for older folks. The premise, setup, and main character were from The Mole Agent, but Schur knew he needed to flesh out the characters surrounding Danson's Charles. On A Man on the Inside, the private investigator Julie, played by Lila Rich Creek Estrada, gets a more prominent role. And where we briefly see Sergio's daughter in The Mole Agent, Charles's daughter, Mary Elizabeth Ellis, has a regular presence here, as she reluctantly goes along with her dad's ruse. I thought it would be very interesting to also examine a person in their 40s who has a father at that age, but also has her own career, her own kids, her own marriage, and her own stresses.